Hi, I'm Kirsten, the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast host. Thank you for listening, and I hope these stories and conversations bring you comfort and help you feel less alone. Enjoy this episode. Hi, Erika. Welcome to the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for asking for submissions on your Instagram feed. That's how I found you. And um, yeah, I hate to say excited, but I definitely welcome the opportunity to be able to share my story and hopefully help another woman feel like that someone's walking with her
Yeah, of
during
course.
this time. Yeah.
Of course. I appreciate your willingness
Hmm.
to share your story. And for those listening, just as a trigger warning, Erica's
Hmm.
daughter, Olivia, one of her rainbow babies, is with her, and you may hear a couple babbles here and there.
Yeah.
So just wanted to call that out in case some of you may find that a little bit triggering. So, Erica, where are you from and how old are you?
Okay, so I was actually born and raised in the U.S. Virgin Islands. My husband and I, with our family, currently live in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County. Right now, I am 38 years old. Actually,
Okay.
yeah, had my little baby at 38.
Okay. And yes, how old is
Yeah,
Livia?
Lydia is going to be 5 months at the time of
Okay.
this recording. This coming Saturday.
All right. So she is fresh and
Yeah.
itty bitty.
Yes, she is.
Yes. And you have another rainbow baby named Luca.
Yeah, Luca is going to be 4 in May.
Okay.
Yeah, he was actually
Amazing.
due on Mother's Day
Aw,
of 21.
what a great Mother's Day gift.
Yeah, he really was. And Luca actually means bringer of light.
Aw, I love
And yeah, so we actually had a really hard time picking his name. And then when I found the meaning behind Luca, I'm like, perfect. Like, this is what we need after what we had been through.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And we'll get into all of
Hmm.
that and hopefully you sharing your story, not only of your ectopic, but pregnancy
Hmm.
after an
Hmm.
ectopic will bring others hope.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's just get into it.
Hmm.
Where did your ectopic pregnancy story begin?
Um, you know what? I'm not a medical professional by any means, but I would say that it happened quite a few years earlier when I suffered from PCOS, and actually I've had not one but two instances like years apart of an ovarian cyst exploding.
Okay. Wow.
And I believe if both of them happened in my left ovary. So that causes scar tissue. Now I didn't there wasn't like any surgical procedures that came with that. I didn't realize after the second one had exploded, the OBGYN was like, "Oh good, now we don't have to do surgery." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Oh,
Come
wow.
again? Yeah, like I didn't realize that he was even considering or thinking um uh, surgery might be a treatment option, considering the condition of my ovaries and that cyst. So my understanding is when that happens, there is like some scar tissue that can form,
Hmm.
and my the actual ectopic story starts in, I would say, spring, yeah, late spring, early summer of 21. I was leaving, I'm sorry, not 21, of 2019.
Okay.
I was leaving a pretty toxic job, and I like my period was late, so I didn't think anything of it because I have been in situations of stress before where that was a direct effect of my stress was a very late menstrual cycle or not having
Right.
my period for a couple months.
Right. That's happened to me before too.
Yeah, our body, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns even uh for women on like what how to I don't know, like check in with our bodies and especially our reproductive system.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought nothing of it. And we ended up taking a pregnancy test in July and we're like, oh snap, we are pregnant.
Wow.
Okay, like
What a
this is
surprise.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were living in this tiny little bougie apartment at the time and looking in Maryland and we're looking to move into Northern Virginia. And so we're in the process of house hunting and everything on top of all of it. And I had just said yes to a new teaching job. And we just calculated the due date really quick on an app. And it was in March. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to be so great for this new job. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, we're having a baby.
wow.
And we go to the first doctor's appointment, and I picked a doctor's conglomerate in the DC area that also had a an office nearby where the house that we were closing on. Um, so I'm like, okay. And they're like, okay, we have male doctors. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And I won't be delivering there. I'm moving, but I need to get the, care started.
Hmm. Now, were you 8 weeks? I think that's usually when the normal ultrasound
Y-
is, but I just wanted,
Yeah. So I think that's where we were
okay.
about. It's kind of it's been a few years and it's kind of in some ways some of those details are a little blurry now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was definitely after like the 6 week mark, but also we also caught the pregnancy late because
Right.
it was so unexpected. So yeah, that's a good point. I think we were around that 7, 8 week mark. And I'm expecting not to recognize anything on the ultrasound because so I'm an only child. I never had the experience of, going to the OBGYN with my mom for, to see little brother or sister or anything like that. And I'm fully anticipating not being able to recognize anything on the ultrasound. And the tech goes, okay, I'm going to go get the doctor. And we didn't think anything of it. And the doctor was like, yeah, your uterus is empty. And we're
Oh,
like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, this is supposed to be like a really fun appointment because you see baby. But that's not the case here. And she didn't even want to say like the word ectopic hadn't even come up at all in this
right.
conversation. It
Did you
was
know what an ectopic was?
yes, actually I did. It's
Okay.
really, really weird. For that pregnancy, my mom even said, because so my parents are still in the Virgin Islands
Okay.
and they were visiting at the time that we found out. So we tell them the news. And my mom said something like, because she had had two miscarriages before having me.
Okay.
And she said something about like, hey, it's gonna be fine, but the good Lord might call this baby home.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah, I know that's a possibility. And it was just a
Hmm.
very frank discussion. And
Yeah.
I was very open to that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. I mean,
so,
that is reality.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think my understanding at the time was about a quarter of pregnancies end up as miscarriages.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
like I said, I'm not a medical professional and I know stats are changing, but that
Hmm.
was my understanding at the time. And I'm like, yeah, that could very, very well happen. But for things to happen the way they did, that was never an expectation. And we're letting our parents know what's going on, like from a distance as it's happening, because my in-laws are also far away. They're in upstate New York.
Okay.
So it's just kind of me and my husband and a couple friends in the area, but no family. So my mom was actually the first one when we told her like, hey, there's nothing there, but my hormones are saying I'm pregnant. She's like, oh my gosh, could this be ectopic? And I'm like, I don't know. I shut it down really quick. I'm like, I'm not ready to have that conversation. I have.
Right.
Like, I know what an ectopic is. I understood it as at the time as strictly being in the fallopian tube.
Yeah.
Now I know that it's outside the uterus, period.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we go see a doctor at another location, this one closer to, like, right next to the hospital. And he's like, yes, I think this is an ectopic. I want you to go to the ER next door right now to confirm this. And then from there, they'll be able to discuss treatment options. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, yeah, let's go. Let's get this done. I was kind of in the zone here of,
Yeah.
yeah, we can take care of this. We got this.
Did they ever ask for lab work?
Yes, I believe I did get lab work between those two doctor's visits,
Okay. Okay.
to monitor the hormone growth level. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so, yeah. Uh, so we go to the ER and we're getting, another, oh, that was, I think, my second transvaginal ultrasound of the day,
Oh,
my third one of the week, because the tech couldn't see anything from the first time. And that ended up also being a transvaginal ultrasound.
okay.
Yeah, fun times,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. The ER doctor comes back and he's like, yes, we can confirm this is an ectopic pregnancy. And
Oh,
this is when things really hit. He
yeah.
told us that there was a heartbeat,
Oh, man.
and it was like 120 or maybe 140 beats per minute.
Wow.
And not knowing too much about early stages of human development and that fetal development, I was like, well, then the baby's fine, right? Like,
Right.
like something just kicked in that, like, deny that, I guess when you're first in shock, first thing is denial.
Yeah,
And I'm
100%.
like, oh, but that, yeah, like that's a strong heartbeat, not knowing that, a heartbeat at 6 weeks is like 180 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the reason why he told me that is because that affected my treatment options.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but knowing that there was that heartbeat, that was, man, that's
Yeah.
when it really, really hit.
Right. Right.
And
Because
yeah,
you think since this baby has a heartbeat, it's
yeah,
it's real. It's
right,
alive. Like how could it not be real?
right. Or how could it not be viable?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So to know I have a heartbeat and we're not viable, man,
Yeah.
that was that was intense. And he explains about heartbeats that early and gives us some time to kind of process that as a couple. And I remember my husband practically crawling into the hospital cot with me
Oh.
when we found out. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
Um, and so our two treatment options right then and there was methotrexate, the which I believe is a chemotherapy drug,
Yes.
injection, and um, that treatment had, I think, a 20, I want to say like 15% less of a chance of working
Mm-hmm.
because of the heartbeat,
Okay.
and that, yeah, hmm and so that's why he had disclosed that they disclosed the heartbeat also.
Yeah.
I had a couple friends in hindsight say, "Why would he tell you that? There was a
Right.
heartbeat." And I was like, well, it affected the statistics of a treatment option.
Right.
You, yeah,
Right. And you needed to know that information.
exactly. So he's like, yeah, we do that methotrexate, little less of a chance of working at this juncture and with this situation, but we got that. Or you go to the OR right now and we remove your fallopian tube. And I'm like, I am not ready to lose a fallopian tube. Thanks.
Yeah.
um, I
Wow. So
am, yeah.
there wasn't even a chance of you saving your tube.
Yeah, there was with the methotrexate.
Right.
Yeah,
Just not in surgery. It was a full removal.
I believe so.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was my understanding. Um, and either way, I just wasn't ready to go into surgery.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not mentally prepared for that. No
Yeah.
thanks.
It just happens so fast. There's no way
It
of trying to
does.
understand the situation.
And the only surgery I had ever had before that, I had a breast reduction back my senior year of high school. And that was a pretty painful recovery. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna lie. Um, and I'm thinking, a horrible recovery is on the horizon if that happens. So yeah, I wasn't ready. So we do the methotrexate, and I have to go back to the hospital to do a check-in with that same lab to see how my human growth hormones are doing,
Mhm. Yeah.
because they want to have that all at the same lab.
Mhm.
So I go back to the non-emergency part of the emergency room, if that makes sense, and get that done. And they're like, your levels aren't really coming down. Let's consult with your OBGYN group. And I didn't really have a relationship with anyone in that OBGYN group, by the way. I was like I was just about to move and
Yeah,
I just
right.
need a doctor real quick. And so they're like, oh, well, let's wait a little bit. So I think that was a Saturday. So Wednesday we were diagnosed in the ER. Think Saturday was the follow-up. And we decide to wait a little bit and see if these levels come down. Um, Monday comes and I'm a teacher, so it's summertime. I'm not working. We're having some issues closing with the house because of the appraisal. The appraisal came in under what the selling price was.
Mhm.
So we're dealing with all that. Uh, I'm a convert to Catholicism. And I decided to actually, because I had been a while since I'd been to Mass, to go ahead and go to confession and then go to Mass and just offer the daily Mass there for this child I was losing, or that child I had maybe already lost.
Mhm.
Because I, at this point, I don't know if we have a heartbeat or not, or what's going on. And I had probably one of the most beautiful moments in the confessional up till this date, even with that priest. And during the absolution, he actually physically put his hands on my shoulder, and I felt this weight lifted off of me.
Oh.
Because yeah, I felt, even though it like wasn't a sin, like I needed to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And like just like have this emotional release. And I was able to do that in the confessional with this Monsignor. And he's like, there is no malice here. Like, this is not your fault at all. And it's like, but I just felt so guilty that I couldn't do anything for my child.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah,
then,
it's
yeah,
tough.
it is very tough. Yeah. Um, and that was a definite point of emotional healing, and was able to um, participate and celebrate Mass there. And went home, tried to relax the rest of the day. My husband and he was preparing a late dinner, and I doubled over in pain.
Oh, man.
Doubled over. And he's like, okay, let's go to the hospital. And I'm like, you are calling an ambulance.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in that much pain. I didn't even know if I can make it. So we were living like on the fourth floor of, like I said, one of those swanky apartment buildings above a Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know if I can make it to the parking garage.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
or
that
maybe
seemed to happen out of nowhere.
um Well, I knew at that time my fallopian tube had probably ruptured because they had prepped me for that mentally. They're like, if
Oh,
you feel any pain, you go straight to the ER. That means that this has happened.
right, right.
Yeah.
But
But yeah,
prior to that,
it was like a light switch though, the pain.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
I was
That's
just like, what?
crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. And like I said, I've had two ovarian cysts explode prior to that. So I know discomfort for when it comes to like my, reproductive organs.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is brutal. This is up there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, my husband calls for the ambulance. They were amazing. Now I had to take the ambulance ride by myself and he followed in the car. And I end up at the ER in the same hospital room where I was diagnosed. Like
Wow.
the exact same room in the ER. I was like, what?
What are the odds of that? That's
I
crazy.
know. I was like, this is the same flipping room. What the heck? And I remember being so scared. So scared. Um and all of a sudden I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. And fortunately I made it, but then in that point I realized, oh my gosh, I am literally scared shitless right now. I just evacuated my bowels. I'm so scared.
Hmm. Wow.
Um, so they had to do, guess what? A transvaginal ultrasound to figure
Of
out
course they
what
did.
exactly was going on.
Yeah.
And that was very painful.
Oh,
That
I
was
imagine.
excruciating. And the I remember the doctor looking at the screen and going, okay, there it is. That's it. Okay,
Wow.
we can confirm this is a ruptured ectopic. And yep, we see it. And then I remember sorry,
That's all right.
here you go, little one. Better. Um, and then I distinctly though remember the ultrasound tech going, oh wait, I gotta get these measurements and those measurements. I think she was just trying to shut out the situation
Yeah.
because when you do a transvaginal exam, you have to get, X, Y, and Z done. And the ER doctor's like, no, you are done. We don't need anything else. She's in pain. I know what I need to do. Like, I have my diagnosis. Finish up the exam now. So he really stuck up for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that made me feel a lot better. And then
Yeah.
the morphine comes in and I'm starting to feel better, getting like a little itchy. But I'm getting loopy now. I'm starting to get out of it. And I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm flipping tired. That's all. Guys, good night. And they're like, oh, shit, she's bleeding out.
Oh no. Oh my
She is
gosh.
bleeding out. She's hemorrhaging internally.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, I do remember feeling like ridiculously bloated,
Okay.
just like really heavy in the lower part of my midsection there. And they're like, okay, ma'am, can we give you blood? They had to get my permission. And I'm like,
Wow.
so at this point, the morphine had kicked in, right? And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm Catholic, not Jehovah's Witness. I can receive a blood transfusion, but I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. So I am like serious Jack Sparrow moment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they turn to my husband, as I remember it, and they go, "Ma'am or sir, can we give your wife blood?" And the scary thing is when, at least in the state of Maryland, when they offer you a blood transfusion or try to get your permission for one, they immediately state the risks of contracting hepatitis C or HIV from the blood transfusion, which is astronomically low of a chance of happening,
Uh-huh.
but still the statistic exists, right?
Right.
So when
Well, and
you are
add to
Mhm.
add another scary, you know, potential outcome on top of what you're already going through,
Right,
it's traumatic.
Oh, very much so. Not to mention, so you can't process because of the trauma. So that's one. And then second one there is you're on morphine.
Mm-hmm.
And all you hear is Hep C or one of the hepatitis. I don't even remember which one it is now. A, B, or C. And HIV. That's all you hear
Right.
at that point. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna take a nap now. And there's my poor husband consenting and signing the forms on my
Yeah.
behalf, right? Um, and the ER doctor, or excuse me, the ER nurse, he turns to me, he's like, "Do you thought the morphine is cold? Wait till you get the blood." And I'm like, "I don't need it. I'm fine. I'm
You're like,
good."
I'm already napping.
And that's actually one of the last things I remember.
Oh,
I
wow.
passed out apparently. And I came to, and the gurney was being moved from that private room into, I think, a triage bay, because the only thing separating me from other patients were curtains. So they moved me to triage, and the first thing I remember hearing is, and I don't know if this was my case in hindsight. For the longest time, I assumed it was in reference to me. I hear the one of the other nurses say, "Well, doctor, what if we need more blood?" And I hear him say, "Then we call the Red Cross."
Wow.
Yeah. So whenever I get to this point, whenever I tell this story, I like to also tell people, give blood. Like, this is the second reason why I tell my story, is because a blood donor saved my life.
Oh, that's an amazing call out. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're ever on the fence and you're someone who qualifies for giving blood, please really consider it. So yeah, that's where we were at. And then the next thing I notice is a priest standing there at the foot of my bed, or like kind of like at the entryway. And my husband had called our parish, and unfortunately, the parochial vicar that I had been building a relationship with during my conversion, he had just been transferred, and this new guy had come in. So, for those who are not familiar with the Catholic Church and the structure, you have your main priest in charge, and then a newer priests are like parochial vicars, and they'll rotate parishes for quite a few years, like every 2 or 3 years, until they're ready to be the pastor of that church and stay a little longer. So this parochial vicar, I think he had just been ordained actually, had just moved into our parish, and he was there to give what we used to call last rites. And my husband had called him because when I was converting, we were encouraged that before even any type of surgery, no matter how routine it was, go ahead and get was now called the anointing of the sick, because the Catholic Church doesn't want you to wait until you are in a like life-threatening dire situation. They're like, before any surgery, go ahead and ask your priest for an anointing of the sick. It's no longer called last rites. We're not waiting till the end there for this sacrament. And during that, so I was like, yes, please, I would love to be anointed before I go into surgery, because I still have surgery coming up
Right.
to take care of everything. And I was still a little worried about it. And during that time of being anointed, receiving the sacrament, the anointing of the sick, I once again find myself in a state of relaxation. Like, it's all okay. Everything's fine. But then my poor husband breaks out into tears.
Oh, of course. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
hard for our partners to go through it because they can't do anything except sit there and support.
Right. Or, accept blood on our behalf.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, you know, make these, in some cases, make a challenging medical decision.
Mhm.
Um, so the priest was very nice. He stayed with us until I was rolled into surgery. And so about 9 p.m. was when my tube ruptured. And I don't think I went into the operating room until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they want, I don't know what my vitals were, but obviously they want to, you know, get me stabilized. So I'm not sure if wow, I can't even remember what I said. So, like I said, the first thing I heard was the nurse asking, "What if we need more blood?" And then realizing that they had given me blood. I actually like looked and I was like, "Oh, there's a bag of blood right up there." And
Mhm.
oh, it's about 3/4 of the way done. Okay.
Already going
I'm glad I
through
missed
it?
exactly. I was like, I'm glad I missed the injection
Yeah.
or whatever that felt like. And then that moment with the priest came in. Now, before I was in the got into the operating room, started to feel like this tightness in my collarbone area and upper chest.
Mhm.
And the only support system I really had after all this was a Facebook support group that I had joined, and there was so many women on there, and a
Mhm.
lot of women talk about that.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what the medical connection is though.
I asked that on Instagram last week, I think,
Mhm.
um, because through all the women I've spoken to, I'd say 75% of them have this shoulder tip pain.
Mhm.
And from what I've heard, because I didn't have it, but from what I heard,
Okay.
it's regarding when you have the internal bleeding, there's some sort of pressure that comes up um, to your shoulder. And I'm not a medical professional and I'm not sure if
Right.
that's 100% true, but it sounds like that's what a lot of women were told.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I haven't even asked about. To be
Hmm.
quite honest, I just started to understand that that was a common thread.
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah. So yeah, I started to experience that, and I don't know like what the morphine level was at that time. I got no flipping clue, right?
Mhm.
And they roll me in and they're playing music. I always think it's interesting how doctors will choose their music
Yeah.
when they're in the operating room.
Yeah.
And it was low rider gets a little lower.
Oh my
Did
gosh.
do, 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 do. I'm like, okay. And I was out before they transferred me from the hospital bed onto the OR table. I don't,
Wow.
yeah. And I told the doctor that he's like, yeah, you were in pain. There was no need to keep you awake. So I'm
Wow.
like, okay, that's pretty
Well,
awesome.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe that was a good thing.
Oh yeah. I was like, okay. I definitely had two male doctors here, the ER doctor and the OBGYN, who were like advocating for my physical suffering there. They're like,
Mhm.
nope, we're done here. This is what we're doing. We're going to relieve the pain here.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been, I guess, a highlight in a lot of this was knowing that, yeah, no, they, in addition to, you know, going about their day and taking and doing their job, they really did have a concern for my of my physical pain there and did what they could to relieve it.
Yes, it's so great when I hear that women have experienced medical professionals being on their side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it feels good.
Mhm.
Now before I went into the operating room, one of the I'm just remembering this now. One of the hardest things, and I was not prepared for this. at all. They're like, "What do you want us to do with the remains
Oh,
of what is?" Yes, because they have to get my consent on that.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I'd rather they ask than assume, but oh my gosh, like
Right. That's
this
another
is
question you are not prepared for.
not all. And I was like, and thank God the priest was there. I'm like, Father, what do I do? Um, and he's like, and he just, I think he like asked a few questions. He's like, yeah, that's fine. As long as, we're it's like disposed of properly and with a little reverence, it's okay. Go ahead and sign. Um, yeah, that's something I kind of, I wish that that was brought up. I think when I was initially diagnosed,
Hmm.
is here are things that you need to consider if you
Right.
end up having surgery. Because they discussed what I need to do when there was that physical sign of you need surgery, of that extreme pain. But here are other decisions that you're going to need to make as well.
Yeah, almost like there should be some sort of one pager that is universal for the experience on all of the different questions to think of.
Hmm.
Once you have that initial uh, thought of maybe this is an ectopic, there should be some sort of resource that you can receive
Right.
so that you can do proper research and prepare.
Exactly. Or just even have that heads up.
Yes.
Just that heads up. Um, so yeah, that was pretty tough. And I was shocked when I woke up and I didn't have any stitches. I only had like three band-aids.
Hmm.
They went in like laparoscopically.
Right. Yeah, and
I, ha-
that's
which is great. That
yeah.
really cut down on my physical recovery, but I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting worse.
Hmm. Well, and that's something that you should be told prior as well.
I might have been, or my husband might have been.
Yeah. Maybe you were
And
busy or something.
exactly. And I was just, either on the morphine or again, just in shock
Yeah.
and just not processing. And yeah, so that was actually kind of a pleasant surprise. And they explained it to me afterwards. They're like, yeah, we stuck a camera in your belly button and these little incisions here, that's where the robots went in and cleaned up everything. And I was like, oh, cool. Um, so yeah, a lot less pain for the surgical recovery than what I was anticipating based on the cosmetic surgery I had in high school. Now, when I was in recovery, one of the nurses or nurses' aides was helping me to the bathroom, and I straight up passed out on the commode. Um, I remember thinking, I need to get to the bathroom. I have no energy, but suck it up. Let's do it. You push through it. And yeah, I completely passed out.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and apparently the nurse like hit the button and like a flood of people came in and I was like, wait, why so many people? Huh? Like after I come to. And this one nurse, she had a pin on her lanyard and it was a picture of, and again, this is another Catholic reference of Jesus of Divine Mercy. I was like, "Oh, Divine Mercy Jesus." And she's like, "Yep, I pray the Divine Mercy chaplet every day with this job." And at that point, I think the whole room relaxed because I had recognized something and I was coming to. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, she's fine." Um, but yeah, that was a pretty scary experience for my husband. Apparently, I was in conversation with him, and I think the nurse's assistant had left to get me some sanitary napkins. Um, or something else I needed. And then I just like mid-sentence right there.
Wow.
I guess my blood pressure dropped.
Wow.
too much. Yeah.
It's just
Because I'd
such
had the blood transfusion.
right, right. That makes sense. It's just
Hmm.
such an unexplainable experience. And I'm still fascinated that everyone's experience is vastly different.
Yeah. I when I announced on Facebook that I had suffered this, I had gone through it,
Hmm.
like a few months later, I actually had a childhood friend. She and I had reconnected through social media. She had moved back home to the Virgin Islands, and she has her son. And she reached out to me. She's like, I went through an ectopic too.
Oh, isn't that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, but it's also awesome in a way
Hmm.
that by sharing your story publicly,
Right.
you do reach other people that you know
Right.
who have gone through something similar, but
Hmm.
they've been unspoken about it. And then you create this connection and relationship
Right.
tied to that one experience.
Right. Yeah. I was just like, oh wow. Now for her, the methotrexate worked.
Okay.
That was her story. So yeah, her story was completely different. And um she had already had her rainbow baby, or like that rainbow baby was just about to, let's see, 20, yeah, she had already had her rainbow baby at that time. So um that was good of her to reach out and do that. And yeah, so now we have that, connection
Mhm.
as childhood friends, and now as, that we've reconnected as adults, that we've been through this. We've been through a pregnancy loss of a life-threatening one,
Mhm.
to be quite frank.
Yeah, it is life-threatening. It's very
It
serious.
is. Yeah, so I'm doing the follow-up with the doctor who operated on me a couple weeks later. And the first thing he says to me, and by the way, at this point, I'm like ready to be examined vaginally. So I'm in position.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Oh, you could have died, right?" And I'm like, Really?" Like, I
Yeah,
didn't say anything to him at the time, but I'm like, is this the best time to tell me this?"
right. Yeah, probably not the best,
Here I
but I do think the severity of the situation hits a
Yeah,
little bit later after
yeah,
you actually go through it.
exactly. Um, and the cool thing with the technology and the robots is, they're able to take pictures.
Mhm.
I still haven't seen those pictures. I was definitely not ready. I'm not sure if I'm ready now to ever see them.
Yeah.
I might be, as I think about that. But my husband did take a look. He wanted to see, and he told me, he's like, "Yeah, your fallopian tube was
Wow.
ripped up. Yeah, it was bad." And the doctor told me they stuck the camera in there to kind of see for what's going on, and he said we couldn't see anything. There was
Wow.
so much blood, and
Oh.
the amount of blood that they emptied equals approximately about half of what the human body
Oh,
produces. Yeah, I
that's
lost
crazy.
it was nuts, and I only got 1 bag of blood.
Wow.
So it took a while for my energy to come back up, and here I am trying, we just moved. I'm trying to start a new school year at a completely
Mhm.
new school.
Mhm.
So the healing, there's definitely, I just wish I could have, had more rest
Yeah, had
for
the
the
proper
healing.
time. Mhm.
Yeah, not yeah, the time, and also the emotional support of it all.
100%.
Yeah, like I could have definitely, tried to go to church for that, but we were just moving into a different state where I would have a new parish at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard
Um,
because
yeah.
your life continues to move forward, and a
Hmm.
lot of times it's super busy, like you've explained, and you don't have time to properly grieve your
Right.
mental or physical.
Exactly. So physical, yeah, I wish I had a little more time, but that wasn't too bad considering it was laparoscopy.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, yep, you're good to go. Mission accomplished. Okay, on to the next patient. Um, and yeah, I just wish there was a bit more of a support or a resource that was easier to get to or find. Which is again one of the reasons I'm just so grateful that we have an ectopic pregnancy survivor who's taking the time to say, hey, I want to hear your story.
Oh,
Let's
thank
put
you.
this out there. So thank you for doing that for, because women are going to continue to experience this. This is just, um, unfortunately, a medical statistic, a medical fact that women are going to continue to go through this.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm,
I say this all the time, but that is why I started the Instagram account
mhm,
and branched off into this podcast. And I have an exclusive support chat as well,
mhm.
because I didn't have the proper resources in 2022. And I thought, how are there not resources?
Right. Or a quick pamphlet
Yes.
on, hey, here's where you can go locally. Not even here's where you can go locally for help. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but here's what you went through. Or how many pamphlets they have on all these different medical devices for birth control that you can take? Well, why not
Yeah.
have a quick pamphlet? They have one on PCOS, but there's nothing on there for like ectopic pregnancies.
Yeah. They should have one for pregnancy loss in general.
Absolutely.
And
Yes. Not even
maybe
one for
have different,
pregnancy loss.
yeah, just have different sections depending on what type of loss you've experienced.
Right. Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I hope we can get to that place at some point.
I do too. Yeah, so if there's anyone listening who knows how those pamphlets are made or distributed, let's start thinking about that
Yeah,
and get those in.
100%.
Yeah, there's a fantastic book called Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom.
Hmm.
And I had an older version of it, and she never once, it's a thick book. It is a thick book written by a female OBGYN, MD, and in her first few editions, not once does she mention ectopic. Like ectopic is not in the index.
Right.
And I was so disappointed in that. And in one of her later versions, it's in there in the index, and there's like a paragraph on ectopics,
I
or
know.
maybe two paragraphs. I'm like, what the freak?
I know. When I was initially pregnant, before I found out it was an ectopic,
Mhm,
I was reading the What to Expect When You're Expecting book. And
mhm,
I do want to say I have to jump to a meeting
right.
here soon. So
Mhm,
we'll end it here. But like you just said, they only had a paragraph in the entire book about what an ectopic pregnancy was. And that was it. And I thought, this, yes, this is such a great book for someone who's expecting, but what if
mhm,
that pregnancy isn't viable? Or, there's
mhm.
just basic pieces of information that should be in those books.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, thank
Well,
you so
hopefully
much,
that this
Erika.
community is helping to fill that a little bit, and hopefully we'll start, bringing those more information to fruition.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so. Thank you so much for sharing your
Mhm,
story, and
mhm.
it's going to help so many. So thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you for doing this. Appreciate
Of
it.
course. Of course. Have a
Mhm.
good one.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for listening to the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast. If you are looking for additional resources, head to ectopicpregnancysupport.com to learn more about my exclusive online support chat. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. See you next time.